You want to come close my door, babe? Well, good morning, good afternoon, good night. Whatever time you're watching this, as always, thanks for watching Common Sense Fishing. Don't forget to smash that like button if you're new here. Subscribe. We do live streams every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7 to 9 p.m. I try not to miss any, but every once in a while I do. And I hold some random ones Tuesdays, Thursdays, weekends, stuff like that. I upload fishing videos pretty consistently. So thanks for watching. And let's get to today's subject. So I went out to Lake New Hogan. So we're kind of starting a new thing here where every once in a while we're going to do a poll and we're going to let the subscribers vote. Hey, Gerbs, how did it go? It went pretty good. We'll go over that. So we're going to have a poll and people are going to send me to wherever they want to, basically. And as long as it's in the state of California and it's above the Grapevine. So I don't want to take my truck or below Shasta. So I'll fish like Trinity, Bullard's Bar, Shasta, Oroville, Clear Lake, all that stuff, Berryessa. And we're going to be doing, once a month, we'll let people basically vote, send me to go somewhere, and I'm going to go there and fish. And it most likely will be places I've never fished before. Guys might elect to send me to places I have, like, the local lakes or wherever have you, Delta, Clear Lake. But so, anyways, it was fun. So I went out to Lake New Hogan. We're going to tell you about that adventure. Also, hopefully, coming up this Friday, I have a pretty short, well, not too short, hopefully on the water 6-7 o'clock to about 3 o'clock on the California Delta with a good buddy. And then we're going to be swinging from there and heading up to Bass Lake. We're going to do a trout derby at Bass Lake Saturday and Sunday and come back. And then next weekend, I believe, or the weekend after, we're going to be at Clear Lake for 3 days with a bunch of the boys, Mark, Nav, Jay, bunch of other guys. So who is a new guy using the mic, huh? It kind of sounds like that common sense feller, but barely recognize me, right? Yeah. Baby face, definitely. I'm trying to work on losing, got to do some more exercise. I'm trying to thin down, lose some weight, get healthier. But the beard was just getting annoying. I don't think I have proper beard etiquette. I'm lazy with it, It was just getting too annoying trimming it and trying to clean it and oil it or brush it. And I was like, ah. So I'm going to go. I either do a goatee usually or I'll do a slight line with the goatee going like this. Um, so it just depends. And eventually I'll go back to this once it gets crazy and hard to like super easily manage it all because it'll get all thick and just then I'll just go back to square one. So plus it feels nice to switch things up. So thanks for noticing, guys. Who's that new weirdo, right? Some people are probably like, I'm not watching that. That's not common sense fishing. What the heck? But anyways, so I went out to New Hogan, had a good time. There's going to be a lot of awesome upcoming trips here in the next 2 weeks to like Bass Lake, the Delta, Clear Lake. Like I said, those are all planned. I don't know if I'll be going anywhere else, and I'm super excited. So I might do a little bass fishing while I'm at Bass Lake, but we're doing a trout derby, so we'll record that. We'll share that with you guys. Just all this outdoor fun. We'll probably have some fun. I might go to like a little bar casino or something with my buddy and have some fun up there. So it's going to be an interesting 2-3 days for sure. The Delta is going to be great. I'm going to get to see a friend I haven't seen for a while. So I'm excited there. So anyways, I've got some tips and tricks to share with you guys tonight. Some stuff that I've learned just on like my own, this last trip to New Hogan. Put some things into perspective. I seen fish doing certain things. I seen fish all over the board. It was crazy. There was a lot of activity. I caught a lot of fish. I tried throwing a big swim bait for about 30 minutes. And in retrospect, I think now if I went back in the next few days, I might be able to stick a giant because I probably found 5 or 6 fish over 5 pounds on beds still. And they were spooky, they were partnered up, they were on beds, but they weren't really locked on them. I don't know if the mama had already dropped the eggs and they're waiting for the fry to hatch, or if they haven't done the deed yet, but they're both up there. And I was finding them like that on specific key structure there, and I found one that was 8 plus, or something. It just was a monster. And I found a couple that were easily over 5, and it looked like this lake had a ton of spotted bass and smallmouth and hybrids in it. I didn't really see. I seen maybe one largemouth in there. I seen a giant striper or two that got me on a like on a goose hunt, chasing wild goose, and I'm basically just throwing like LV 500s, top water, all kinds of crap at these monster. I seen a couple of them monster stripers, and they came out like right in front of me attacking stuff, and I was like, damn. And then I seen a school of some stuff underneath me that I wasn't sure if they were monster striper or they were carp. And I was in a grassy arm at that point, so I believe it might have been a school of carp. And there was just a ton of them. And then I came across a massive school of bass, and I caught. They ran right like a freeway gone. And I'm trying to chase them. I caught them at one point. I dropped down. I would catch one, and then the school was just hauling balls gone. And I'm like, what the hell? They're gone. They didn't chase. You might bring 2 fish up while you're fighting one. One might come up with it, but it was crazy to see. Those fish were in 20 to 30 feet deep. I caught some fish in the 20 range, 22 feet deep. I used my fish finder, and I was able to find some. I found that they're suspended. When I was bottom bouncing, it was hard as hell to get bit. They weren't really being cooperative. There were some fish up shallow. I was looking for beds for the first few hours. Okay, so the trip is real complicated because I'm trying to put all this stuff together in my mind, right? Oh, it's overcast, it's windy. There's moments where it gets calm, moments where it gets windy again. So you get up shallow when it's calm, you can see beds. When it's windy, all of a sudden you can't. When you see the beds, you don't see fish. The clarity looks pretty decent. You're like, what the hell? And it took me an hour of look. I'm like, there's no fish on these beds. So I started trying to fish a little deeper. And then eventually I did see one. Like once it had got light enough outside, hey Ray, what's going on? Once it had got light enough outside, I seen one swimming away from a bed. I go, oh shit, they're in that stage. I pulled back, and sure enough, you waited long enough, you seen them come right back to the bed. And I started finding periodic beds, but I found decent amount of beds on specific structure. Then I would go a big old distance and see one random bed here or there, and you wouldn't see any fish on them, right? And then I'd go to these other areas and just see 5 or 6, 7, 8 beds and not any fish. I'm like, what the hell? Well, it turns out, right, it was real overcast, but the water's pretty clearish. You can see 10 feet down easy, 10, 12 feet, 8 to 12. It's just different areas of the lake have a little bit better clarity. And so you can see pretty deep, some beds sometimes at 8 feet, but the bottom is real dark, and there's muck and there's grass and there's like gunk down there. And just like the bottom isn't all hard bottom, is kind of soft on hard. And in some places, right? And in others it isn't. And you can't see the fish, right? So what's happening is by the time you get anywhere near, you can see the bed, they're moving away. And I started catching them. I started slowing down. I started figuring out, and I had already been catching fish throughout this whole period. So I got one drop shot, or not drop shot, Ned rigging up shallow. I got one on a crankbait up shallow. First thing out the gate, thought today's gonna be a good day. Then it took a minute. Then I got one on a bottom bouncer, and then after that, I went around and fished for a minute and couldn't get anything. And I was like, what the hell? So I moved from that spot. I was doing all this searching and thinking, and I moved to a different spot, seen a bunch of beds, was experiencing all the same stuff. All the thoughts are running through my head. Like, what stage are we in? Are we in post spawn? And by now I probably had 4 or 5 fish in, And I'm like, what are we doing? What's going on? I see beds. It's cold, kind of. It's been kind of cold. It's starting to warm up, though, right? After a cold front. And I'm like, and it's been warm the last few days, but it's overcast, right? And it's windy. I'm like, trying to figure out what the hell's going on. My first time at the lake, so I have no idea where to go. So I had looked on Google Earth and I picked two places in the lower lake and two places in the upper lake. And once I started fishing the lower lake, I decided I didn't even want to run up lake right now. I wanted to focus on breaking that entire area down and finding the best spots down there. And then if I go again sometime soon, running mid and up lake, and then doing the same thing, spot hopping to what looks good to me and fishing it. And sure, almost every spot I had picked had fish on it. While if I checked other random shoreline, I couldn't find much of anything. And I started getting them on various different lures. I got one on a jerk bait. I got one on a crankbait. I got them on a Ned. I got them on a Nico. I got them on a couple different things. And I'm like, what's going on? It's not, it's kind of slow, but it's all right. And I'm trying to put two and two together and figure everything out. I'm catching all 1 pounders and below, one and a half and below at this point. And so I go throughout the day kind of looking for beds and occasionally seeing them. And I start putting a pattern together of where my fish were at. And then I go to some islands and I catch them. I catch them on a crankbait. I catch them on a jerk bait. Again, one on a Ned rig. And then I started noticing that I would see these big fish jump and boom and splash it. And I'm like, oh, that's either a striper or a big bass. It's not a carp. The way it hit, I was close enough to see it. I just couldn't differentiate. I had a big enough mouth. It was violent. It was eating stuff. And there was a couple of them while I'm like, I'm in the right area. I'm like, So I stopped, spot locked. I started fishing. And then one time what happened is I started noticing that if I seen one jump and I was casted out and I reeled in, I would reel in super fast, flying real fast, little Ned rigs zipping through the water. And all of a sudden you would see these 3 to 5 pound bass. And once I seen like an 8 to 10 pound, maybe striper come at it. And they'd turn right at the last minute because they'd get to the boat. And you could tell it was the intense speed that drew them out. That was what really got me to start throwing the jerk bait, right? So then I didn't know what one to throw. So I started with one that was a little more shallower. I got one on it. I had one on already, but I started kind of picking the spot apart and using the jerk bait. And then I just started catching them. And I started going down the shoreline and just smacking them. And as now halfway through the day, mind you, we're halfway through the day and it's been overcast and a little bit windy. So my main go-tos were things like I threw an LV 500, I threw a jerk bait, and I threw a spinner bait. I threw the things that you're supposed to throw in this kind of weather. And then in case there were any spawners, post spawners, or anything just sitting around Fry Garden, I threw even finesse to try to catch them, right? And I caught them okay. I did decent. And especially first time at the lake, I was already satisfied, but I knew I could do better, right? So I'm trying to figure them out, pick them apart, and I'm just catching 1.5 and down. And I know there's got to be some spawners, so the beds just look too fresh. And some of them just look like they were made yesterday. I'm like, what the hell? My little spidey senses were going off. Something's wrong. And it was all overcast, and then bursts of wind, and then bursts of clear moments where I could see some stuff, but not long enough, not from far enough away. And sun started to peek out. And the bite, I went a little bit deeper, and the bite just stayed decent. And it actually kept getting better and better when I started choosing spots correctly. And I was hitting either in coves, but secondary, like points inside of coves. So they're points, but they weren't like the main lake points. They were just scattered points inside of a cove, right? And they had specific like jagged shale rock that was only like max a foot tall, lowest maybe 2 or 3 inches, and there would be patches of like soft sand between them, and they were just like shelves going out. So it'd be like a shelf of that shell rock, some soft bottom, and then another shelf like this, and then another shelf. And so they were stacking on those. And I started seeing them finally. The sun came out, and I have my sunglasses on. And during when the sun wasn't out, I tried with my glasses, without my glasses, to try to see if I could see them. And I just couldn't see them. And I had seen one, and that what's gave me the momentum. It was like I've been catching dinks all day, right? So it's halfway through the day, I'm catching dinks, and I see this one. It's like 3, maybe 4 pounds. I'm like, oh, and I'll go for it and it gets spooked and it wouldn't come back and I couldn't see it anymore and I'd go back and forth and I got tired of messing with it. But I'm like, I had seen it go back on its bed once. I'm like, they're there. I seen that earlier too, once with a smaller one. I'm like, all right. So I just kept looking and I knew where I was catching my fish. So I approached the next one real slow and crept up on it. Hey, Bobby Mools, Ronald Roquemore, good to see everybody on tonight. Smash that like and subscribe button if you're new here. For everybody who's returning, make sure you hit that like button before you go out. Appreciate it. Someone's lighting off fireworks right there. But really helps the channel, so I appreciate everybody's engagement. But anyway, so halfway through the day, I'm catching fish, and I start catching good numbers on the jerkbait. Because I had started adapting. So I was using the crankbait earlier. Then I started using the bottom bouncer. Then I went to the jerkbait and I threw the spinner bait and a couple other lures. No luck really on those. So I went back to the jerkbait and I figured out rather quickly within about an hour because I would catch some, then I wouldn't, then I would catch some and I wouldn't, and I would be in the right spots. And I'm like, what's going on? And I figured it was my cadence. What they wanted was a deeper diving jerkbait, but a floater. So I used the Mega Bass 110 plus, and I'd get it down. It would go about 6 to 8 feet, maybe, or 6 feet, and I'd get it down there, even in 3 or 4 feet of water. Try to be where their beds are at, and I'd even hit the rocks and let it bounce up. And then once I got over open water, the idea was either way. What they wanted was like two twitch, just really soft twitches. They didn't want the jerkbait flying. They didn't want it in rapid succession. The pauses, they didn't want it longer than about 3 to 5 seconds, but you had to pause your jerkbait for a minimum of about 1.5 to 2 seconds. And if you waited up to 5, that's when you have a few that came late at about the 4 or 5 second mark, right when you started to move. You feel it, boom, because you're like, okay, so you start moving the line, that little twitch or something wiggles that jerk bait, bass hits it. So JP Fraga, good evening, nice to see you on. Thank you, appreciate it. Yeah, the shave, thanks for noticing, guys. I got tired of dealing with the beard. So anyway, so I'm sitting here at New Hogan having fun catching numbers, but can't find any big ones. And then, like I said, I started getting put onto the pattern. I started realizing there were beds still. So I slowed down. The sun came out and gave me the advantage of really slowly creeping up and watching for the light spots. Then as soon as I saw the light spot, I looked for a dark spot somewhere near it. Sure enough, I started seeing these bass, and damn, these bass were super finicky and had great eyesight. As soon as you got close enough, they'd bounce. A lot of them. Some of them would let you get within 2 or 3 feet of them, and then they'd slowly move off. And when the wind would die down, or I get in an area where there wasn't a lot of wind, and I started trying to do this, and it was nice and sunny out, or not sunny, full sunny, but it was still overcast, but it was getting a lot brighter, and I could see these fish now. And I noticed what I was doing wrong. So I started adjusting and I started catching fish up shallow, but I couldn't get the big females. I kept getting all the males. And the other thing is that, like, most of the time it was windy, so I had to blind fish. I couldn't bed fish. If that sun had stayed out and it had died down a bit, I would have used something like a Kitech or a bigger white Cinco or something, and went across that bed really slow, cast past it, brought it towards it. If the male would have got it, I wouldn't have set the hook. I would have let the male take it off the bed, do that over and over again. And eventually you'll watch the female come take charge and pick it up. It's just you don't want to set the hook because most of the time they're not trying to eat. Sometimes you have to if the bass is literally swallowing your lure so you don't get it stuck in its throat. But you'll watch. Most of the time the bass will pick your lure up, have it halfway in its mouth, move it slowly away, and then we'll spit it out after it's had it for a few seconds. They usually don't hold the bait long in the spawn. They're just trying to keep the bed clear, which is why if you can get up shallow in spawning flats and areas and run things like crankbait, a jerk bait, or a spinner bait really slow in 1 to 4 or 5 feet of water max and make parallel casts, you'll start getting them. And sure enough, I did. But I couldn't get the females, and I had spotted this group of really large female bass. I spotted them in 2 different areas, or 3 different areas actually, all on the same pattern on those rocky shelves, and they were right directly across from the launch ramp. And it was a super easy straight shot from like the launch ramp towards the dam, and it was those points on the right that are tucked in kind of, and they have the rocky shelves, and the bass were on the points. They weren't in the coves. They weren't on the softer bottom. They wanted that rocky bottom that had like a soft, like bed bottom area. Then they could, they were making their beds in those little pockets in the shale rock. And once I figured that out, like around noon, I just went around and started destroying them. And I was catching hella fish. And like I said, I caught 30, 40 fish, mostly all on a jerk bait. And it became like where I was like, at a certain point, I realized, this is fun and all, but I'm not getting the big fish to bite. And then so I went back to trying to figure out how am I going to get these big fish to bite. I started throwing the jerk bait and then throwing other bait. I tried bed fishing and sight fishing. I'd creep up on a bass, and then right when I would get there, the bass would either see me, or what would happen is I would almost get it perfect and the wind would pick up. And then I couldn't see no more, and I'd cast. I knew where the bed was at, and I may even had a bite or two, and I missed, and then no more, and then you're constantly moving back and forth. The wind was at that spot too. The wind was pushing me towards shore, so I had to like stay well enough away, or else when I trolling motored in reverse, the plume would be shot at the shoreline. So you had to keep the motor at a lower speed so you didn't blow out the shoreline, and you had to like tactically use it from a farther distance, let yourself drift, and then push yourself back and try to keep yourself in check so that you didn't get too close. And that took a bit to figure all that out, right? And I started fishing specifically for these bigger fish, and I'd spend 20, 30 minutes on one at a time on 3 or 4 different fish. I seen some monsters, and I just noticed that it would struggle. What would happen is I would see them on their bed, and about the same time I'd see them, almost religiously, they'd see me. And sure enough, I'd try to back up and slow down, and I'm going slow as it is. I may have been going a little too fast. Maybe I should have been going slower. But especially once I knew what the pattern was, I tried to go as slow as possible. And that's when I started seeing them much better. But I couldn't bottom bounce them and get them to bite most of the time. And then when I did, I got them on the jerk bait all the time. Like I got all the males. And I had a ton of fun, caught a lot of numbers. And I did get a couple females. So at the end, what I did, how I kind of figured it out is I should have in hindsight, there's the 2 things I should have done. I should have 3 things. I should have either, once I figured out that pattern, I should have went to those same exact locations like I did, and I seen monsters, and trust that the fish were going to be there, park offshore and blind fish at them. And as soon as I felt anything different, lay into them. And I could have done it that way. A lot of times you will get the female actually to bite. Sometimes, you're not. You're going to get the male a lot of times, but you do get lucky and get the female a lot doing that because they're off guard. And the female is like, what? She's the bigger, meaner bass. And sometimes if they don't feel, if the guard's not up, she'll take that initiative. But if the guard's up, she'll back off. The male will kind of protect the bed as best he can. And then there's a certain point where you get close enough, they just swim off, and they watch you. And then when you back off enough, they come back up. And there is a rare point where they literally will let you almost park right on top of them. But that's a very short window. And so these bass were real skittish. They'd see you, they'd swim off. And then what the problem would be is if you didn't get really far away, they wouldn't come back because not only could they see you from pretty far away, but when they would come to go back to the bed, if you weren't backed off far enough, they would see you and just not go back. And so you'd be sitting there waiting and the bass wouldn't come back. Then you'd leave and you'd come back 20, 30 minutes later, the bass is there again. And it was frustrating. And the windows of opportunity were real slim to try to sight fish because the wind was up most of the time. Even in the wind protected areas, it was so nuts. The stupid wind was changing direction all day long. So one point it'd be blowing this way, then the next it's blowing this way, then the next is blowing this way. And I'm like, like wind, make up your mind. And I could try to figure you out and fish like the way I feel comfortable, So it was a challenging aspect. It wasn't too windy. It was like 12-mile-an-hour wind to 7-mile-an-hour wind gusts, that would, be pretty strong. And then just a mild breeze enough to keep you on your trolling motor all day to stay still. And so it wasn't like horrible or nothing. It wasn't white caps, but it was annoying, frustrating. There were points where the wind got pretty dang strong too. And there probably was white caps at that point, but I was tucked away in a cove fishing. And that was only for a short period of time. Most of the time the wind was decent, but still it was an annoying factor for what I was trying to do. And I realized little too late that there were still big females on bed. So here's a couple of takeaways from the things that I noticed. So one is within a few hours, I noticed the bass were all spitting up baby bass fry. So tons of them. And the bass fry were like this big. So I know that many waves have already come and gone and spawned. And those fish are well beyond or well into post spawn, where they've already done their little lockjaw thing and now they're out swimming around. And so those fish are the ones that when I was reeling my lure across the water, I was having 3 to 5 pounders just come dart at it like, whoa. And that's when I got the idea. I started using jerk bait, started using top water, but they wouldn't commit. They wouldn't hit. It was so frustrating. And so I did manage to catch a decent female. Hey, underspins already. Yep. I'm getting them on jerk baits and square bills and stuff like that. So that's how I got all mine were reaction. It was fun. But the size. So I did, when I was putting around, I went to eat lunch and I was going to go from one spot to the next. I decided to use my fish finder and I was eating a sandwich and I decided to graph. And I'm taking my time looking for fish. And sure enough, I see a group of like 5 of them, like within 3 feet of the bottom, just looking like they're sitting there. They're not moving. The signatures are more still, and I'm moving, and I can tell. And I'm like, all right. And then I hit the thing into neutral, and I'm still sitting down. I grab my Ned rig, and I fling it out the back, and I let it sink. And the boat's barely slowing, and I hit reverse a little bit, and then put it back into neutral. And I'm just kind of sitting there. I'm doop. Sure enough, boom, boom, bam! One of the bigger fish of the trip was a post spawn female that came out of like 20 plus feet of water. She looked like she had 4 or 5 others with her. At the Delta, hey Mike Dozer, nice. Steve Marino, what areas do you like to fish at the Delta? Pretty much all over, but I'm a creature of of comfort, so I tend to launch at usually the closest launches to me. So usually uh, I would launch from Monte Diablo or Lois Park, but you can't do that right now because that was a free launch. I was brave. I just luckily never got broken into. I'd launch from Lads a lot of the times. Lads is where we launch from Buckley Cove. Um, and then I've launched out of Ben Holt once or twice, but I hate, that the launch ain't open till 8. It's annoying as hell. So it's like usually I'll fish in that area. I'll drive over there, but I won't launch there. I fished out of or launched out of like Lazy M. I've launched out of Russo's. I've launched out of Holland Track. I've launched out of a couple different spots downtown Sacramento, or not Sacramento, downtown Stockton launch, and a couple other little hole in the wall ones. But that's pretty much it. And then I drive around that area. I don't get to go up towards like the Sacramento area of the Delta. I don't get to fish up in those sloughs, the Sac River. Um, I don't get into Rio Vista. I rarely make it. I make it down to Discovery Bay and stuff like that sometimes, but I don't go much further than that. And my main stomping grounds would probably be like Ben Holt area, um, Lads area, Frank's Track area, some of Mildred, the main channel, most of the main channel, stuff like that. And I find little back cove cuts on the main channel and get monsters in the Delta sometimes. It's been a while though. You fished the Delta last year. You had fish slapping the frog all day. None ate it. Zero hookups. What do I do in that situation? So two or three things can happen, and most people tell you the first thing you need to do is stop and let the frog, let the bass get the frog. So what most people are doing is they're popping along, and the second they see the explosion, they set the hook. And believe it or not, they're so fast that they actually snatch the frog away from the bass. So what you want to do is if you're using a frog, first off, when you do get a bite, I know it's visual and it's heart stopping, but wait till you feel the bite. That's the number one rule. Some people say count 2 seconds. I don't say count it at all. If you see and hear the bite, boosh, and your pole loads up almost instantly, set the hook. Do not wait. But if you see and hear the explosion and you don't feel it yet, make sure you have a tight line. And then if you feel the bass move, then you kill it. Because if the bass missed, which can happen, right? So if the bass missed, you want to leave your lure there for a second for the bass to get reorientated from the jump, and then twitch it a little bit like it's injured, like the bass succeeded. Don't pop it and move it a lot. Leave it where it's at and barely wiggle it and twitch it, and then stop and then move it just a little bit, and that bass will come back sometimes. Or the other thing is follow up a missed blow up with something like a weightless Cinco. That's an old school favorite, and believe it or not, it's super deadly. Or a Nico rig or something in there, or even Texas rig. Throw something in after your frog explosion if you don't get a second bite or during that same cast. Because like I said, if it misses it, just leave it. Don't set the hook, right? If you don't feel the bite, you don't set the hook. You want to make sure that you actually feel the bite. So if you see the explosion, you don't feel the bite, you're looking, and come on, if the fish had your frog by now after a big old explosion, you're going to feel something, right? So if you don't feel nothing, then the fish missed your lure. So here's one thing that you need to think of, or a couple things. When the fish missed the lure, here's usually what happened. And I've actually got pretty good at this. I've been frog fishing a lot at Kelsey the last few years, and I've been frog fishing at the Delta. I'm not a frog pro, but I was able to put a lot of things together and notice that sometimes they hit in the hottest parts of the day is the best for topwater, not early morning and late afternoon. Actually, love the heat for topwater bites, especially if there's cover or structure and something they can be under. But anyways, one thing that's happening is what is attracting that fish to make you bite, to make it bite. And there's a couple of different, let's say, techniques, right? And any one of them could be what triggered your bite. And let's explain. So let's just say you're doing a standard walk the dog. Do you do pauses in between walk the dog? So you got the walking action, stop, and then walking action. Now, is it the walking that caught the fish's attention, and then the stopping that made it come up, and then all of a sudden it starts again that made the bite, right? Or are you doing a like a popper? Right? How are you working it? So what seemed to get that fish's bite? You'll notice if you fish topwater a lot, that sometimes you make a little bit of commotion, flap, boom, bang, right? And you're working your frog around, whatever have you, and then you stop it. Take a pee, go take a bite, and you're dead sticking and just sitting there, and then boom, the bass hits it like within a few seconds, not a long time, like a pause. Like you think about this, you're working a jerk bait. It doesn't blow your mind to think that you should pause a jerk bait, right? But if you pause a topwater and a frog, it's the same thing. And sometimes I don't mean pause it like twitch, 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 stop, twitch, 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 stop. That may work, right? But you may need to go twitch, twitch, and then stop, then twitch, 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 stop, twitch, 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 stop, and wait, like a few seconds, 5 seconds in between each movement. And you notice that you get bit on the dead stick. So here's what I'm saying. If you start getting bit on a frog, notice what kind of bite is it. Now here's usually why I think they're missing it. So if you're happen to be attracting them when you dead stick it, right? And they come to bite when it's been sitting still. And let's say you're doing the pause, but you're not doing it long enough. So what happens is you move, you throw the frog, it moves, pop, 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 and then stops. Now the bass comes and is going to come at the lure and do its thing, and it's about to bite it, and then you go and move the lure out the way. So the bass misses its strike because you're not letting it sit enough. Or the reverse can happen. Let's just say the bass wants it moving quickly, and the bass is the lure's moving, then it stops, the bass looks at it, then the lure starts jetting, right? And in the bass's mind, it's saying, okay, the lure is moving this speed. And I no, they're not mathematicians, but it's something our brains do. Simple, like if you throw something and catch it, right? The math that your brain does to make your body do that, right? It's actually complicated. But it seems like it could be second nature to just do that. So the bass sees the lure, the frog, start moving and figures, I need to hit right here because the lure's moving this speed and I'm going to come at it and hit it right here, right? So the bass commits, it does it, and your lure stops right here and the bass hits in front of it. So pay attention to how you're getting bit and try to stay on that pattern. And I think that you'll have the bass connecting with your frog more often. Is pay attention to like what is happening when you're getting bit, and because it's frustrating as hell to get bit multiple times and then not hook up with the frog. Jason Matthews, hey family, Matthews family, that's my last name. How did Hogan go, Sam? I realized I have an addiction to fishing. I'm spending more money than I can. You talk about how a guy can go broke bass fishing. Oh, definitely. Look at my collection behind me. I'm a fool. I'm always buying new stuff and collecting stuff. So thanks for watching, guys. Smash that like button if you get a chance. I appreciate you guys. But yeah, I spend money on bass fishing, on collectibles. I got 5 kids right now, but 4 in the house. I technically have 6 kids, one that's never met me. So it's crazy. Uh, man, families and life is expensive. It's a never ending hustle of making money and working. So I do heating and air conditioning. So when the weather gets warm, like really hot, I go work heating and air conditioning, and I'll actually fish at night. When it's temperate and it's cool like this, I'll take all my work and I'll bundle it into a day or two and make myself real busy those 2 days. Then the rest of the week I can fish instead of spreading my work out a couple of days here, a couple of jobs this day, a couple of jobs next day. Gives me a lot more freedom like that. So it's fun, but won't probably be like this forever because I'm hoping the company, obviously, we're going to grow it, right, and get busy. So that's the name of the game. But anyways, I'm enjoying and loving life and just love sharing my experiences and all the fun I get to have. So, anyways, Hogan was great. I had a fun time. I caught 30 or 40 fish easy. I got most of them on video, but not all of them. There was just so many fish and so many dinks too that I just didn't bother recording. Little dinks or medium dinks, just left and right, and keepers here and there. You know, I had a good bag, like not a good bag, but like I had a limit, and it felt good for my first time there. Now, tournament wise or like fishing wise, no, I did horrible because I couldn't capitalize on getting the big fish to bite. And I found the big fish, but it was my first time there. I was able to differentiate what kind of water I shouldn't be fishing and what kind of water I should be fishing. I was able to find a pattern and a location type and then replicate it and catch fish everywhere. And sure enough, where I thought I wouldn't catch fish, I'd try fishing for a little bit. No luck, nothing. Hey, give me a quick second. I'll be right back. I've had a lot of water. Just got to go piss real quick. Sorry, folks. All right. All right. No problem. So the bass assassin, was I going to say? Make sure maybe try bending your hooks out a little bit too. So the big tips would be bend your hooks out a little bit. Um, Pause and make sure when you get the bite that you're feeling it instead of seeing it and reacting to it. And if you're still missing them consistently, try taking and analyzing your pattern, like your speed and your pauses and your, what were you doing and where were you getting bit. And then if you can figure that out, you can make sure that you don't move the lure too fast or too slow or too erratic or not erratic enough, because there was something you were doing. And it's usually, like I said, one of those two situations. Either the fish misinterpreted the speed of the lure and busts in front of it, because let's say you were going real fast and then all of a sudden you slow down and the fish was coming in to strike anyways, but plotted its trajectory based on where the lure appeared to be going. And then you either moved it really fast and the fish hits behind it, or you didn't move it fast enough and the fish hits in front of it. And if you start noticing where the bites are coming from, are they coming from behind or in front? If the bites are coming in front, then you probably want to speed up a little bit. If the bites are coming from behind, that means it's missing it, then slow down. So those would be my tips right there for frog fishing. So anyways, I don't mind. I enjoy when you guys ask questions. I'll give you guys the best information I have. Like, I'm not a pro. I don't know it all. I always tell you guys that. It's just my experiences, what I've seen, and then also maybe what I have heard from other YouTubers or videos or magazines and books that I've read over my 30 plus years of fishing. But most of it's stuff I just picked up and figured out on my own. That's why I'm not going to act like I can tell you too much about swim baits and other stuff, only maybe what I've read. But I'll never claim to be a big swim bait pro unless, I start getting there and doing that. So, I pat myself on the back. I did chuck the big S Waver 200 for the 8-inch one for probably a half hour or 45 minutes to no avail. And, I tried a deep dive in or a medium dive in crankbait and a spinner bait, a couple different spinner baits to go after these suspended bass that I was seeing. Top water, I seen some bass or striper or bass busting on things. They were really, I think the other thing is maybe match the hatch. They seem to have all turned on the fry. Everything I caught, including the female, were spitting up fry. So looks like there's still bass spawning for sure. And I found some big ones, but there's a lot of fish on the radar that are moving and jamming around. And you can see in certain areas the water on your fish finder will look like it's got this stuff in it, but it's not quite fish and it's just full of fry. And then you'll see these fish just coming through, like just tearing them up. It was pretty cool to see. I seen a couple of times massive schools of fish on my fish finder come under, boom, and I was able to pull a couple out once or twice. And I even tried chasing them down, and I caught like one or two, but man, they were just on the prowl. They were smashing around 1 to 2 pounders, and the big fish I couldn't. I don't know. I think, you know, I don't know the lake well enough. I don't. I mean, I tried doing a bunch of different things, but I got really keyed in on throwing the jerk bait shallow and catching a lot of numbers. I had just had a lot of fun. I tried throwing a big swim bait. I tried, doing a bunch of stuff. I throw crankbaits. I fish shallow. I fish mid. I fish deep. I had big followers like 2 or 3 times doing some crazy stuff, just reeling my lure in. And then right at the boat, whoa, big old fish. Like, oh, damn. Like, man. So I would keep throwing those lures and just no big fish. And then, like I said, I seen them even on beds, but the little ornery boogers wouldn't bite. And they were just, it was hard. The ones that were on beds or were up shallow, only the smaller males were aggressive. And they weren't even aggressive. They wanted, so I don't know if I covered this already, but on the jerk bait, they wanted the jerk bait paused like 2 to 5 seconds or something. And they wanted small twitches. So, and then let the thing sit there and it would float slowly. And then, so I was covering, it was taking me like a couple minutes just for one cast, like as if I was bottom bouncing. And sure enough, like all the time, I was just getting smashed fish after fish. It was super fun. I caught a bunch from cast to catch. I caught a bunch on beds even where I could see the fish on the camera, and I'm using a jerk bait and I'm getting them, and they wouldn't bite anything else, and I catch them with a jerk bait. But when I found the big ones, it was crazy because they would sit around just enough for you to come once or twice and then they would scatter. And I don't know if they just took off permanently or because a couple of them I did see them eventually come back, but it seemed like they would always swim off and they didn't come back because your boat was close. They were super wary, the ones up shallow. So I was able to get most of the males just throwing jerk baits at them. And then the offshore ones, I got a few, and I tried some crazy different techniques. I tried top water. I tried speed reeling stuff, and I had I had good fish following them. Not like tons, but way more than I thought. I was like, wow. So I tried speed working stuff, and it didn't work. I tried all this crazy crap. And the jerkbait with the slow twitch just seemed the best. And I had to I downsized Hey, good evening. Delta bound Friday. That's what I'm doing. So I'm gonna be Delta bound with a buddy Friday. Probably be launching out of like Russo's or Holland Track or something like that, and go fish that area. And I'll be fishing with a nice buddy of mine. I'll be down there till probably about 3 o'clock Wednesday, and then I'm gonna have all my stuff packed up in my truck and well, not like a bunch of stuff, but just like a sleeping bag and some clothes and stuff. And then I'm going to head from the Delta at 3 o'clock. I'm going to drive up to Bass Lake and go crash there for the night. And then I'm going to be doing a trout derby at Bass Lake Saturday and Sunday. And so the Delta Friday, uh, Bass Lake, a trout derby, one of the tagged, you know, for money trout derby things, and then should be the next weekend or the weekend after. I have to go check. I'm heading up to Clear Lake, so a bunch of friends are all heading up to Clear Lake. You know, probably going to rent a motel or a place, and we're all looking at going up there, and you know, we're all going to go have fun and fish Clear Lake for probably 3 days straight. So that should be coming up soon. And then I think once a month or so, I'm going to do the vote to send me somewhere. And we'll probably hold that, you know, next week or the week after. So we'll let everybody, we'll put a vote out on the channel and we'll talk about it live stream. We'll count up all the votes. And whatever place gets the most, that's where I'll go to next. I like that idea. It was fun. New Hogan was fun. I like going to a new lake, figuring it out. It made me think. I know what I did wrong. I know what I did right. If I went back, I'm fully like confident I could go back right now and catch some nice fish there. You're launching at Paradise? Nice. There you go. Paradise is cool. Paradise Point. The Daiwa RX last week is now looking for a reel for it that won't break the bank as he spent most of his money on the rod. Suggestions? Um, Honestly, there's a couple. If you go to Walmart, I know you're not going to want to, you may not want to hear this, but because Bass Pro Shops and, you know, online's probably the best spot. So let me show you. There's a couple that I got. So I was going to say, like, if you're impatient, like, see, I'm impulsive. So I like to go put my hands on things and go purchase one. So you can go to a tackle shop. You can go to, like a Walmart. You can go to you know, a Big Five. You can go to like a Fisherman's Warehouse, Bass Pro Shop, and they a lot of them have like these crappy little reels that you can buy, and anything that's like affordable that's at one of those stores. Honestly, you probably could get a lot of those at a Bass Pro Shops, or I'm sorry, at Walmart or something, right? They at Walmart carry some nice Shimano and some even Daiwa and stuff that's like um, I'm pretty sure. I know they have some Shimano that are like 40, $50 that are like 8 to 10 ball bearing, decent, sturdy, um, you know, reels. But let me look up the one that I have that's really good. So a spinning one that won't break the bank because I bought a bunch of them. Yeah, I have the Daiwa Revros LT spinning reel, 49.99. So nice little spinning reel. Daiwa, like $50 price point. You know, I have like a couple $100 one. I have the Daiwa BG spinning reel 65. I have a couple others that are some a little bit better, but Shimano makes some good ones too. For me, it's whatever, you know. That's why I like to hold the reel. I like to go to a store and feel it. I like to turn the handle. I like to inspect it, because it depends like on what are you going to be throwing with it. So are you going to be putting 6 to 8 pound test, 4 pound test? So do you want like a little micro, not a micro, but do you want a smaller spool? Are you going to be fishing 10 or 12? Do you want it to be all around where the kid can throw crankbaits, square bills, some top water with it? They can throw a worm, finesse. They can finesse fish with it. Drop shot, Ned rig. They can throw a medium, a 3/8 ounce jig on it. They can throw, if they're using 12-pound test, well, then you're going to want to get a bigger reel, like a 2500 or higher series. So the number usually will indicate the size of the reel. So the spool. So you're going to want to look and make sure the spool's deeper, right? It holds more line, because then the diameter of the thicker line is going to take up more of that room. So just depends. If you're going to use it for a specific purpose, then you can go in and buy a specific reel dialed into your specifications of what you're doing, and not spend more than 50 to $100, and get something really decent, right? And if you're fishing this something that's more all purpose, the same thing, just make sure you get the right size, right? Like me with dude, I want to get more. Oh, hey, what's up, RC Creative? For sure. I'll send you his information. Jig Sucking Lips is the company name now. His name's Bijan on Facebook, but I'll send a link to you so you can get a hold of him. Those jigs are sick, man. Walmart has some nice loos as well. They sure do. So it looks like Walmart went in with loos and a couple other. Believe it or not, I fish a lot of Walmart gear, so that it's interchangeable for my kids and me. And a lot of my nice fish come on those. I'll be in the boat and I have some expensive glass rods. I have like a Dobbins, that's all right. I have a swim bait rod. I have a couple of those. Then I have some workhorses that are about $60, Walmart, medium heavy, and a couple medium actions that are just perfect, that are workhorses. And they're paired up with similar reels, 50 to, 40 to 80, $90 reels. And they work and perform great. They're years old. They put a lot of big fish in the boat. You're seeing them on the videos. I got double digits on Walmart rods in my videos. I do have one double digit on a real expensive rod in my recent videos, but a lot of big fish caught on cheap crap. It's just, taking care of it, like using the right line on the right reel with your drag set the right way. Don't ever take your lures. And if your pole doesn't have a hook holder, don't put them in the eyes and don't put it on the reel, because those hooks can gouge lines in the reel, lines in the eyes, where your line's going to start getting snagged and hooked up. There is one place you can safely put your hooks if your reel and your pole doesn't have a hook holder or something of that sorts. You can actually put it, if your eyes have an eye like this and then they have an eye holder. You can hook it into the eye holder, not the inside or anywhere in the eye. You want the lure to be right there, if anything. And but it's proper taking care of your stuff. Don't lay it in the dirt. And the cheap stuff will last you good. It'll last a long time and it'll do you good if you're not trying to break the bank. If you want some really good stuff, I have some recommendations. But again, I'm the guy to go to for like your average everyday stuff. If you want to know how to catch good fish, or like what my recommendations are with average everyday stuff that the average everyday Joe can afford. I do have some high end stuff, but my whole life, and even right now, I'm not financially well off. So my whole life I've been broke. So I've been fishing with Walmart gear since I was like 13, and hand me down poles, anything at first, and then Walmart gear. And only in the last, 10 years or 5 years to 10 years, 10 years, let's say, if I really been able to buy more expensive stuff. Yeah, probably the last, actually, let's say 15 years. I'm older than I think. I've been able to finally buy some decent stuff, nothing crazy, $200 combos, where the reel's a $80 reel, pole's $120 or something, whatever, you know, and maybe it's a $200 pole and $100 reel, but on a combo they give it to you for $200. I have a bunch of those, Bass Pro Shop specials that are like 150s, like that's where a lot of my stuff is been in that area. And I tell you what, the $150, $120 to hundred and something dollar stuff seems to break more often for me than the 50 to $80 stuff. I don't know why, what it is, but I do feel the quality in it. It's just maybe how I've taken care of it. But the cheap stuff's done me pretty well. So, anyways, yeah, no problem. Thanks for the questions. You guys are awesome. So, RC Creative will make sure I'll send that over to you so that you have my buddy, Bijong. He's a jig maker. He has the company Jig Sucking Lips. I've got a double digit on his peanut butter and jelly jig. And I have a special request. When I order jigs from jig manufacturers, I like almost all of my jigs to be just without any weed guard, no brush guard, no weed guard. And then I order a small percentage to have the weed guard and the brush guard so that I can fish it in wood, cover, or weed and grass, and I don't worry about snagging up. But since I fish a lot, like Clear Lake has a lot of rock and stuff that it has grass and stuff like that too. So I have both for there. But when I'm fishing something like McClure, Don Pedro, New Maloney's, or from, now Hogan has slime and some stuff on the bottom. It's a different lake. Um, and even some of Eastman, there's a lot of snags in Eastman, but I fish predominantly with no weed guard. So when the bass bites, it's a lot easier to set the hook. I don't have to swing really hard, so I don't snap off my fish as much. At 13 fishing rods and reels. Yeah, I've got a few. Yeah, I've had a few 13 fishing reels. We did a big giveaway that's on video. I want to say 8 months ago or a year ago, maybe, where we gave away and we raffled off like 10, 13 fishing reels. So they're a pretty decent company. I think there are definitely some that are better than others. You get what you pay for. So, but for where my standpoint is, it's hard to beat a 50 to $80, Shimano Daiwa, something like that. Just even at a 13 fishing, Phoenix, anything, even a see, because the problem is when you go with the real high end stuff, but you get their cheap stuff, it's not that good, like a cheaper Dobbins Fury or something, the 703. I have one of those. It's like 100 and something bucks. I actually have much more luck. That rod for what its size is and its build, it feels like it should be used as a drop shot Ned rig, finesse rig, Nico, stuff like that. But really, the backbone is way too strong. It doesn't have enough flexibility. And I miss a ton of my fish on the drop shot or Ned rig or stuff with that particular rod. It's very sensitive and it's lighter, a little bit more comfortable, but it's got way too much backbone. And I use it for other things, and it almost seems like it doesn't have enough backbone to then switch it over to a Texas rig or a jig rod or something like that. So it's a very awkward rod, but it deals with big fish pretty well. But I'll go and I'll put that hundred and something dollar rod down and pick up my Jimmy Houston Hog Hunter, which is a Walmart combo that was uh, it was 49 or 59.99 for the rod and reel. I've had that rod now, that same particular rod for probably like going on 12, 15 years or so. I don't remember. but I know I've caught in double digits on it, monsters. I still have the rod and I still have the reel. The reel just broke like 2 years ago. It's insane. Where do I get the skirted nails and rattles? Oh, great question. Being experienced with the 13 rods are nice. Yeah, I have, like I said, I've had a few reels and I've had one of their rods. I have a rod graveyard over here though. I have a bunch of broken rods. Like right here is a Carbon Light 2.0. I need to turn this one in. I have insurance on this one, medium heavy, 7'6", but the tip is there we go. The tip is broken, so the tips broke off, and the rod's way too stiff to shorten the tip and just use it as is. But that particular rod, I believe I have insurance on. But there's about 15 others, various different brands that are broken and and messed up over there, from the eyes being busted out that I could probably fix. But I'm lazy. I need to just do it on a few of them. They're probably decent enough rods. I should. And then there's some that just the tips have broken, changed the dynamics of the rod, and they're not under warranty or anything. And they're good rods too. They're well worth it. But like I said, I got a big group of them over there. They're just my rod graveyard. So I've had a bunch of different brands. And to be honest, what's on my boat now is a blend of real cheap stuff and expensive stuff. And all the cheap stuff I've had for years, and they catch plenty of fish. So I can't knock it, but I've got plenty of cheap stuff in the graveyard too. But there's a couple $300 rods in there too, just sitting there busted up. But hey, whatever. I'm gonna tell you guys a funny ass story, and then we're gonna get on to some more information. But my wife had just bought me about, I don't know. She got a credit card, and she took it out just to surprise me, right? And she went and watched like Tactical Bassins, like best rods and reels, like and got me a couple of $500 and $600 combos where the rod and reel. So maybe the reel was 400 and the rod was 200. Maybe the rod was 300, the reel was 300, but together the combos were $500 to $600 a piece. She got me a couple of those, and she got me a couple of $200-$300 combos, and one that was like $150 combo that she knew I liked. And she got all these different combos for me. And she got me like one really nice spinning rod, and got me a bunch of high-end bait casters of different for different stuff, because she's always heard me talking about it, right? So she surprised, excuse me, she surprised me one Christmas, and they had been used a little bit here, a little bit there, and it's now about 3 or 4 months later. And for that year, I had missed a month or two of fishing. I was doing heating and air. I fished a little bit here and there, but most of the rods didn't get used. There were bait casters. I was doing a lot of finesse fishing with the old fairy ones, right? So it gets to be like April or May, maybe June. I don't remember. And I go on a night trip, and I got all my badass rods all laid out, all my stuff laid out, and I pull up over by the dam at McClure Point, and I'm on the big rounded hill part, and I get all parallel to make my first cast of the night, right? And I reach back to bomb a jig, and I'm gonna throw a jig like a mile, and then work it along this point, right? So I go back and I just go, and about four of my poles flying into the lake. I'm like, oh no! I end up getting one or two of them, and I lost two very expensive combos that night. Like pretty much never used either. It was so funny. And I had them all tied up with all this night fishing crap, power fishing stuff. They'd been dialed in and thrown a few times, and that was it. It sucked. It was so funny though. Someone came up. I know someone found a couple, $1,000+ worth of rod and reel just sitting at the bottom of the lake. Man, I don't know, maybe not though. But I threw them right there on that point in like 30 feet of water, and I fished for them. I kept trying to get them over and over again. I was throwing like 500s down there, and I couldn't find my poles. I fished for them for like an hour or two, and then gave up. And then went fishing, caught fish. Was frustrated and pissed, but I caught fish. I had fun the rest of the night, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. I let it go because I had like 4 or 5 combos bought for me, and they were all like hella good. And I lost one very good one and one like one of the medium ones, like 250 or something, and lost like a 600, like one of my best ones, $600 or $700 one. It sucked, but I still had a couple of really nice ones. So I'm like, well, at least I didn't lose those. So yeah, it sucked. It was whatever though. Been there, done that. Life kicks you in the nauticals. It's how you deal with it. Don't have a heart attack getting too stressed out over shit. But yeah, true story. So, anyways, I'll be at the Delta this Friday. I would highly remind everybody that so some of the things that I picked up on is that there's fish in multiple stages. So they're fishing 20 to 30 feet deep right now at that lake at New Hogan. About others, but I would assume they probably are fish in the deeper range now. And they're not on the bottom. You can catch them bottom bouncing, but some of them are close to the bottom. Some of them, I found groups of fish in 20, 25 feet deep over like 60 feet of water suspended while I was munching my sandwich driving around. And I found a group that were almost a foot off the bottom or a foot or two off the bottom, but visibly off the bottom, but barely, and a grouping of them. And that's when I pulled a couple out video game fishing. That was fun. And I see a massive school that I chased and I caught a couple fish out of. That was fun. But they're moving, hauling balls. And at the same time that all that's going on, there's fish up shallow spawning. And there's then, oh, well, that's going on. There's fish out busting and smashing topwater shit all around me because all around me, moving and swarming are just swarms of fry. And there's bass and striper because they're busting amongst the fry. And you can catch some out fishing deep with things like reactionary stuff. And I got a bunch of followers, but not many bites. Most of my stuff came up shallow or get video game fishing out a little deeper, right? So there's fish in many different stages. If had I just taken a deep dive in crankbait and fished in the 20-foot range and just moved around those key areas, I guarantee you I probably would have caught a bunch of them, especially if I seen them on the fish finder and just started fishing those areas. Um, Maybe the big ones would have hit. I don't know. I tried a spinner bait. I tried a bunch of other stuff. I did get them on crankbaits and jerk baits down in 6, 8 feet. So I know I was getting fish in the 10, 15 feet range to come up and hit my bait. Because I did catch a few out in the open. Um, but it was just a very sporadic, right? You get lucky. I don't have forward looking um, radar or live scope, so I can't see the fish out in front of me. I can only see what's below me. And so there's all this craziness going on at a time. And I'm trying top water periodically. I'm trying out, nope. I'm trying everything. And I'm getting a fish here and there and everywhere, right? And I honed in and just did one thing and started smacking them. So there's lots right now. It can be kind of confusing. There's lots of fish doing lots of different things. And I highly suspect that almost every single body of water of California has a majority of the bass probably already turning on their fry and already being very active towards eating fry. But they're also can be very spookish. Uh, they can be real jittery because they're cruising. They're on the usually top water column. They're where they could see a lot farther out of the water, so they can see you from farther away. Um, there's a lot of fish that are moving around, as well as there's fish that are still coming in to spawn. There's a late spawners. There's fish that are barely, on beds right now still. I'd seen it with my own two eyes. Lots of them actually. So there's lots of fish doing lots of different things right now. So um, I think each scenario will dictate to itself, to each fisherman, what they need to do. That's the hard part. I can't tell you what to do, but I can give you advice is that if you encounter, when you know that you occasionally can see them, but it's too windy, then, and you know that they're spawning fish, you can elect to fish out deeper offshore for post spawn bass and do pretty good if you can use your electronics, use things like a slow rolling spinner bait, a Kitech, an underspin, something that you can roll slowly through the water column, right? And even certain crankbaits and jerk baits, and you can fish offshore, or you can pull up shallow, or stay offshore but fish shallow, and you can fish a couple of different things. You can fish a bottom bouncer, or you can fish power and reaction, but you can focus on being shallow. You can do a couple different things. You can try them both, but I would recommend focus on one group or the other, and that depends on your body of water and what you're seeing that particular day. And if you have the ability to bed fish and there's still bedfish to be had, by golly, figure out the pattern and go find some, because there still will be monsters on beds that can be fun to catch. But if you're having a hard time, if the fish are super spooky, if you're not getting a lot of bedfish to bite, but you see some, but they're, not cooperating, remember that just because there's a couple fish on beds also doesn't mean they're all on beds. So that you can do other things as well. But you can go for post spawners, which means a whole different fishing type. It's top water, it's reaction usually, or if it's finesse, it's got to be something like a weightless Cinco and letting it die over 20, 30 feet of water. And when the schools are moving around and that thing's just slowly, one will come up and eat it, it's just too realistic. And it a couple of different factors though is couple of tips I've seen over the years is if the water's clear, the fish usually like things moving in either erratic or fast movements, and tight wobble. If the water is dirty, they like to have a slower movement, slower presentation, slower fall, and darker colors, and lots of movement. Something that disturbs a lot more of the water, because when it's clear they can see better. When it's not, that it's more of a feel where the sight needs to catch its attention. So there's different things to fish with in different weather patterns. So depending on what you see, is the water dirty, there's all these different factors that you got to take in. And so my particular conundrum at New Hogan was, it was my first time there, and and the weather was changing from overcast to sunny, and it was a little bit challenging, catching fish but not being able to catch the right ones, and then occasionally seeing ghosts down there, right? That's what it looked like. You could barely spot them. And then when the sun came out, to finally having confirmation, and then frustratingly fishing for them, and then realizing if you see them, they can see you, and they were almost not always really hard to get a fish if you could see it. It was next to impossible. So I tried, and it was just, the fish would eventually, you cast too many times, the fish would swim away and just leave. It was crazy. But yet, if you went away long enough, they'd come back, and they were surely and definitely on and near beds, but they weren't behaving like they usually do during most of the spawning period. Like, these guys might have been post spawn waiting for the eggs to hatch and kind of guarding the area until the fry can move, right, and leave. So it looked like they had like done their business, and the both of them were there kind of egg watching. And that's kind of what I would put it at, what stage most of the fish seem to be in. I actually caught one or two of them bellying and doing the side thing, like they're actually either sperming on the eggs, the males, or it was actual the females laying the eggs. But I seen a few doing their little thing down there. But as soon as they seen you, man, or you cast at them, they were very finicky. It was just hard as hell to catch. Remind me of when I was in Woods Creek at the Ed Lacey tournament, seeing all those big fish, and it was just frustrating. I got too close. So then what I started doing was blind fishing, and I realized that what happened is I was blind fishing. What would There would be all these stretches of fish and then stretches of no fish, and I was blind fishing during the stretches of no fish, making it even worse. So I'd pull up to stretches where there were fish, and I actually caught one or two fish blind fishing, but it was just their bite was super light. You had to guess. You had to, you knew there would be fish up there. Let's just say you had to guess and make multiple casts over and over. Yeah, and sometimes you get bit and then miss it, and then you wouldn't get bit again for 4 or 5 casts. And you pull up, you'd see the fish, cast at them. You might even get them interested, but the second they seen you, they were just done. It was so hard. So, like I said, I started using reaction, and I think I fished reaction a little deeper than I should have. And I was trying to go for post spawn females, but I got a lot of hungry males that were out there chasing the fry. And then up shallow, I got a lot of the males that were up there on the beds with the females. The females weren't committing. I did end up getting a female eventually like that, a decent, nothing crazy. But I also got them fishing offshore using my fish finder. So it's tricky. So in hindsight, I think I would have, as soon as I had a pattern, I would have stuck with it and backed off and probably blind fished more and tried some different techniques, drop shot, a Nico trick rig, a finesse jig, something to piss these fish off, and then just fished a spot real thorough. Especially once I knew they had really big fish. I probably should have left that spot alone for 20 minutes. I say this all the time because what happens is I'll leave it alone for a minute or two and think I gave it long enough and then go back to fish it and I'll cast a bunch at it and then no bites. And eventually I'll go check it out and there's nothing there. And the bed's there, but there's no fish there. And then in some instances, I kind of would back off and wait and I'd see the fish finally come back. I'm like, what did I at a certain point, I either got too close, something happened, I spooked it. They're that finicky. But if you're casting really far away using a jerk bait, they would occasionally turn on. It was just the males, though. It was super frustrating. So I tried the big swim bait. Um, I tried a couple other things. So in hindsight, I would either go for um, blind fishing at them now that I know their pattern. They should be there for another week or two or more, even moving in and out in waves. But it's the spot that they're spawning on is perfect. And focus on those and just blind fish for some big spawners. And then if I catch a male, keep it in the tank for a minute and catch the female. Then if you're tournament fishing, as long as it's legal, size. You put it in the tank, catch the female, and then release the male. You're culling technically, right? I'm pretty sure that's okay. If not, someone let me know. But a couple tricks you can do, but that can be frustrating. Another thing is that's why it's really nice when you can see them. You can actually see which fish is going for your lure. And if it's the male, you can just move the bait out of the bed at the last minute and keep doing it over and over. Let the male come up, like sniff down on your bait, look at it, move the bait away, and do that over and over again. Just piss them off. And eventually the female will come up and then let her eat the bait. Good to go. But when you can't see the damn fish, oh, it's so frustrating when the wind picks up or it gets dirty water and stuff like that, and you can't see the beds or the fish anymore. Then it becomes a who's who game because most likely every time it's going to be that stupid male that bites. And you have to do a certain techniques to get the female to bite. It's tricky. And I prefer to see them when they're on the beds or to just blind fish at them. And sometimes you get lucky because I think what happens is when you get close enough, they can see you. If they're locked on the beds, that's fine. But they'll be on guard. They're usually tougher to bite. You got to work them a lot more. and usually the male will do his thing first, and that's when you got to fish the bed for a while and then get the female to bite, right? But if you can't see them, or if or if they see you religiously before you see them, well, what happens is if you back off and you fish new water, or if you fish upon that spot and you do it from real far away, these fish, their guards down. They don't see a boat, they don't see someone, they're not paranoid, they're not skittish yet. I mean, they are, they're fish, but they're not in a high alert mode because they don't see a boat and they don't see a person. So your lure comes smashing down. They may be a little skittish at first, but there's no boat, there's no trip. So the female is actually the bigger, more aggressive bass. She may let her guard down and actually eat that lure before the male if they don't see you, because I've actually caught some big females doing that exact same thing by backing off and letting them relax and letting the bed settle down, literally have a smoke break and come back and then go at it and fish from far away. And sure enough, I hook into it and it's the female, not the male. It seems like, when their guard's down, the female might go at it. That isn't a guarantee because, shoot, just catch a lot more of the males. That's why, like I said, look at anyone's Facebook post. I caught 30 or 40 fish. Great. They're all males, they're all dinks. I got a couple females post spawn. But even them, they were nothing to write home about. Everything's small. But I had a great time. I conquered the new lake as far as I got a limit. I didn't get skunked. I got a lot of numbers. I didn't crash or sink the boat. And it worked out. So can't complain. So I'm just happy to have gotten the experience. It was fun to go to a new body of water. I'm looking forward to actually going back there, believe it or not. Um, and I look forward to the next poll that we have where you guys want to send me. So think about it and make it unique or special or weird. And I'll be glad to go. Just got to remember I have to be able to take my boat. I want to do a shore fishing adventure or go somewhere where it's electric motors only or kayak only. Haha. And I got my bass boat. So, I wish like I could go to Rancho Seco or something like that, but you can't. You got to have certain boats can go in there. I think electric only. But yeah, so it's going to be great to do some fun new things. But the Delta is coming up Friday. I fully plan on most of those fish being post spawn with some spawners in there. I'll be tossing up shallow with some weightless Senkos or wacky rig stuff. But most of my efforts are going to be with a spinnerbait or a crankbait, and I'm going to be fishing the outside weed edge where a lot of the fry is going to be holding on to. I expect to get a lot of fry garter males, but the big females will also be sitting there waiting for the bluegill to come in that may either eat the fry and or also that should be spawning in the next month or two before we hit too late into July. Bluegill spawn in May, June, and July-ish. They come in right after the bass and they spawn in late spring, early summer. So those guys should be coming up to do their beds soon. And the big females will be, in my opinion, at the Delta. If you're looking at any fishing area there, find the weed edge and the weed lines, and they should be on the outside edges of those, wherever the current's at, on the current side of them. They'll also be on the inside, what I like to call the trough, basically the area between the shoreline and where the weeds start. That'll hold a lot of monsters, and that's also where they'll bed and where they'll make beds. And my particular favorite is to find shoreline in areas that have patches of the weeds that are 2 to 5 feet thick, not too thick where they're 20, 30, 40, stretch out all whatever, but it's just like a strip of weeds, like a sidewalk patch. And they've got and I look especially for the ones that have a nice 2 to 3 foot trough or even more 4-foot trough of water behind them that I can run lures through. And then they're thick, 2 to 5 feet thick, not too thin, not too big. And then in some shorelines, that weed edge seems to go forever and ever and ever, right? I like to find places where it's broken up into patches, where there's a clump, big clump here, an open space, a small clump, open space, small clump, dots, and then maybe another big clump here, and then a broken, and then what I'll do is I'll come in and I'll use the little spaces between the weeds. I'll either use my bottom bouncer and work them through those, or my reaction like spinnerbaits and crankbaits, and cast right up to shore, and then slowly come down in between those. I like to call them lanes, and smash them. And again, the delta is primarily done almost 100%. If I'm in my boat, we're going to be parallel to the shore, and the guy in the back can come up front with me, and we can fish like this, where basically I make a cast and reel it in, and then he makes a cast and reels it in. And the boat moves forward, and I make a cast and reel it in, and he makes a cast, and we're a foot or two apart. So if there's a fish here, or and here, we're getting all these different angles, and we're fishing 45 kind of, or as parallel as possible, and fishing like this. Not even 45. We're like a 5 to 15 degree, real sharp and tight. And I'll have the guy in the back come up front with me, and we'll both be cranking and spinnerbaiting a reaction. He's at top water, I got a crankbait, and we're just going matching each other, right? Even if his retrieve's a little slower, as long as his retrieve's not 5 minutes and I'm trying to cast and then waiting, and then your speed has to be similar so that you're synchronized and the two guys can fish up front. Or the other way the guy in the back can do is, instead of being in the back and trying to cast real tight, smashed up against shore, or fishing all this dude's leftovers the same direction, turn around out the back and fish the same way he is, but in reverse. And just remember, boat's moving, so if you pull into something, it's going to snag you. You might lose a few things, but you're going to bump into stuff, if you're using a crankbait or spinnerbait. And then you can also reel slower. It's almost like natural trolling, depending on the boat speed, and catch a lot of fish. I've catched a lot of fish out of the back of people's boats doing. So a lot of guys, they'll try to fish out. If you're in the boat, I like going by I go with somebody. I want to be if I'm the guy in the front, I try to be mindful of whoever I'm with, but I pull right up against that weed edge. And if I'm fishing the trough along high tide, I pull my boat right over the weeds, and I pull my trolling motor up towards right above the weeds, or barely in them, and I fish literally from shoreline to where the weed edge starts, and it's just a foot to 2 or 3 feet. Sometimes just this much water to about this much water, where the shoreline rocks drop, and then the weed edge starts, right? And where the water goes down and up right there. And then usually, even on low tide, there's a foot there or something. And then high tide, it's 4 or 5 feet. So I'll pull up over those weeds. I'll get as tight as I can to the bank. And my lure is literally, I'm running a crankbait or a spinnerbait or an underspin right parallel with that stuff. And then I'll pull out over the weeds, and I'll fish the outside weed edge. I'm always doing one or the other, outside weed edge or the inside weed edge where the trough's at, or where there's little clumps and patches, crisscrossing inside of them like that. And that's really all it is to the delta. And throw power reaction stuff, throw whatever you want. Throw spinner baits, throw underspins, throw frogs, throw top. You're going to catch them on all kinds of crap. That's the thing about the delta. There's no best way out there because it changes, and there's so many different fish in so many different areas. Just cover water and have fun. And when you find the big ones, though, that doesn't mean don't leave. Because a lot of the times there's a reason there's big ones there, and when there's one, there's usually more. That's the great thing about the delta. If you stumble across a big one, there's more there probably, not just one. And I mean a truly big one. You find an 8 to 10 pounder, there's probably multiple 8, 5 pluses in that area somewhere. They run together. Don't buy a boat, right? Sam, my wife says I'm spending too much money on fishing. I've been completing the bank account to go. Any advice? Don't buy a boat. get a better job, right? um, yeah, there's a lot of money on fishing for sure. I have the fortune of I've already spent a ton of stuff throughout the years and accumulated and took care of it. And there was a period where I wasn't able to do a lot of fishing before I started my YouTube show. During that time, I was able to save and get a bunch of stuff. And so it doesn't take much money in lures to keep my stuff going. And then I've gotten much better at losing stuff and getting it out. So now I don't take much, bait anymore. And then with that being said, um, some months I spend 500-600 bucks on fishing or more, probably, or even more, 1,000 or more. Some months I might spend 100 or 200 on fishing, and so it's all relative. But the one way to look at it too is happy husband, happy life, just like happy wife, happy life, right? So if at least you're not out doing bad things if you're out fishing, right? It's a great hobby to have. And you just anything in life, you don't want to let it financially get you so bad that you can't pay your bills. But at the same time, that's something we're all coming to face right now, with inflation, gas prices rising, with everything going up, with potential food shortages, with the fact that like Russia produces a ton of the world's wheat. And then not only that, we actually get, I think, I don't know what the percentage is, but I heard it was like massive, like over 30% of America's fertilizer comes from Russia. And so without fertilizer, you're going to have smaller yields, you're going to have smaller plants, smaller crops, less crops. And so that means less food into production. Um, it's just a bad situation we're potentially facing, coming after 2 years of being shut down, with all of the backbone of the economy shutting down for 2 years, while the big rich companies like Amazon, Costco, Walmart, Target, they all got to stay open, and all the fast food joints, they all got to do drive through. And so every normal job and business after that took a massive hit. The economy's just crushed. Truckers, the vaccine mandate fight for the last year. Now all of a sudden it's like disappearing. Everything's getting quiet about that shit. Nobody cares about it. But the world is like in the quiet phase before the storm. We went through a nasty storm, let's say, but I think we're going to go through a worse one. I know I'm going down or I'm going down a rabbit hole here. So this is part of, sometimes on these nights we have fun and we talk about all kinds of stuff. I've talked about being homeless, my car crashes. I've talked about the crazy crap I've seen in the sky, the little weird like power surge looking thing that shot across. I've talked about how I met Kerry Stainer when he murdered those girls at Don Pedro, and he woke me and my friends up. We've been stalked by mountain lions, been in a 120-mile car crash. I've had a bunch of friends pass away. My son's passed away. Like I said, I've been homeless, divorced. I got a lot of tales to tell. And sometimes here, we talk primarily fishing, but sometimes it get me going down a path, and I'll discuss something. I don't ever want to come off like my ways the way it has to be, or that I know it all. I'll just share a story or maybe my point of view on it. So, we're at a point right now though where literally, like, both media, not so whether you think one side or the other is lying to you, or you're Republican or Democrat or what side you are, and even if you're not politically, I'm not into politics. Well, our own news companies right now, both sides, are talking about very real possibilities of food shortages, even in the United States. They're talking about dog food shortages. Um, they're talking about, and I mean, think about this. We're looking at potential war with China. You've got North Korea, Iran that hate us. Very possibility of war with Russia. And there's also a ton of countries that are saying they don't want none of it. So they're not really going to be in the conflict if it does pop off. The world is like a powder keg set to blow right now. 2 years of everybody being bottled up inside. Whether you're a conspiracy theorist or not, there's plenty of conspiracies afloat too that could be a part of the whole thing, or maybe it's just one big fat coinkydink. Either way, regardless of what kind of person you are, what side of the spectrum you're on, right or left, up or down, whether you're liberal, Republican, conservative, independent, whatever, most people agree that the picture that we're facing as a country is pretty bleak, is one of the worst ones we've faced in a long time. Gas prices are super high, inflation's at an all-time high, foods at an all-time high. We're looking at potential water and food shortages, food rationing, where when you go to the store, you can only buy so many packs of meat. They're talking about potential rice shortages. And then when the food shortages, let's say Russia is a big producer of our fertilizer, and then we don't produce a lot, the big hurt is going to be felt in the fall when the harvests are half or 30%, or they're only 25 or 30% of what they should be. Then the people that make your cereal, your granola bars, or whatever the hell you eat, your Doritos, your tortillas, your chips, your food, your sandwiches, all this product is going to be in short demand. Prices are going to go up. Inflate. We've been printing money like it's toilet paper. So financially, either way, like I said, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on because both people have done it. We're in a shitty position right now, and so it doesn't hurt, in my opinion, to know how to fish, to know how to hunt, to know how to camp a little bit, to have a little bit of some emergency food supplies, batteries, some lighters or something, some flashlights, sleeping bags and stuff. Know how to like rough it if you had to bug out in a hurry. Where's all your camping stuff at? And then it's fun. Take your family camping, get out and relax and enjoy life. And then if shit ever did hit the fan, at least you'd know how to erect a tent, wouldn't be a bumbling idiot. You'd have part of the whole problem down. You know how to catch a fish, right? So you could feed your family, feed yourself. But yeah, we're looking at some rough stuff right now. And maybe here's the deal. Well, not all doom and gloom. Here's the deal. Maybe it'll all smooth out, kumbaya, everything will get better. We're looking at civil war. People are at each other's throat. One side's prosecuting another side like they're the white supremacist, devil, evil people. You know, one side says one side's this or that, and so Americans are also divided. So some of you people may be one way or the other. And all I'm saying is, man, united we stand, divided we fall. And we're in a very precarious situation nationally, where half the nation hates you if you don't wear masks still. Half of the nation thinks you're a dumbass if you're wearing masks still, especially if you're in your car by yourself. Half the nation thinks the other half of the nation are literally terrorists or white supremacists or this and that. The other half of the nation thinks that the other half are just insane Nazis, and they don't get along. It's just we're in a bad boat America wise. We've had months of violence with the defund the police stuff, with the Black Lives Matter protests, whatever side of the spectrum you're on. There's unrest here. The world is falling apart, and financially, our housing market's in a giant bubble. Money's being printed and inflated. It's fiat currency. The worlds are starting to buckle on the dollar. Russia doesn't want to trade for oil and gas anymore. Our own country shutting down our gas lines and pipelines, yet begging other countries for oil when we could make it here. We could get it in Alaska. They say that there's leases that are approved, but a lot of them are approved on land that doesn't have oil. All the good stuff's been denied, blocked, restricted, pipelines not approved. And then incentives for electrical cars would be nice. There would better, more money invested on that. You have bailouts that do trillions of dollars are passed, and all this money goes to giant companies, corporations, this and that, supposedly to save the economy and the jobs. Yet us average folks get like $1,500 checks or little stimuluses here and there, and they're taken from us to give us a little tiny piece of the cake, really, and they're robbing from us, and we're gonna have to pay this shit back. So, you know, anyways, the we're in a spot where I think it's important that we understand where we're at, but it's not all doom and gloom. I think that if we can communicate, talk, I think unplug a little bit from the internet, from news, live and learn and be outside and amongst each other, have conversations in face to face instead of over the internet, share ideas and be open to each other, but at the same time, care about America first. Take care of the world if we can, but we need to take care of ourselves. Let's get our shit straight, get our head screwed on right. Let's put this pandemic crap behind us. Let's learn to act like adults. Freedom was fought for and died for so we could act the stupid way we're acting right now. And we're willing to toss our freedoms away for a little bit of safety. And there's famous quotes that a man who is willing to give up security or safety, or whatever, for give up freedom for safety will get neither, or something like that, right? Because people are giving up their freedoms so that they could feel a little safe, and little by little they're taking every bit of freedom that we have away from us, and that's something we can't be having. So, stand united, be there for each other, but be compassionate, because there's multiple ways this could play out. It doesn't mean that we have to have a bad ending or even a mixed ending, But I'll tell you what, I have a little money in Bitcoin. I have a little bit of cash I save up. I have money in different bank accounts, a little bit, not a lot. I'm not well off at all, but I've spread things out to where I have access to what I need to. If I needed to get my money, the bank couldn't shut me down and say withdrawals of only 500. Like, because they've done that in other countries when there's a run on the money and people are desperate and they go to pull all their money out of their accounts. You think there's enough cash in the banks for everybody to go withdraw at the same time? Hell no. When you know, most of our money is phony numbers on digital. It's not even actual hard cash. It's crazy how the whole system works if you know about it, and it's sad that a lot of people aren't educated on it, don't seem to care, and it's affecting us now. Finally, the fishermen, right? So politics, we don't want to mix politics with our entertainment, with our fun. That's why people got mad at the NFL. That's why people got mad at NASCAR and baseball. And I don't want to mix politics with our fishing fun, but I do. I don't mind mixing real life truth and an occasional story. You know what I mean? Talking about like where I came from, all the shit that I've seen. Again, I don't claim to have all the answers or to be right. I do have an opinion, just like everyone else does. Just like an asshole, like we all have one, right? Um, it's just, I think it's good to be able to fish, to hunt, to camp, and all that. I have sustainable, like my backyard is full of food. I have raised beds. My whole backyard are raised beds with vegetable gardens. I know how to rotate my crops and harvest in different times. We're going to be doing canning. Trees, I have grapevines, I have fruit trees, I have cherries, plums, peaches, apples. I have figs. I have all kinds of stuff. So I'm self sufficient enough. There's a river nearby. There's lakes nearby. I have a boat and a vehicle. But if stuff really hit the fan, we wouldn't want to go there. We would pray it doesn't go there. But it's sad that as Americans, for the first time, we have to choose between whether we can go fishing or whether or not we put food on the table, or whether we have gas to put in the boat or the truck, or lures to buy, and will our wives jump us for our bank account being dropped because we've got all these other bills and things we've become accustomed to. You think 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you just had a cable bill, and you complained. You wish you could only pay for the things that you wanted because you didn't want all this cable. You just wanted a couple channels, right? But you wanted your channels. And now, how do you like it? Now you still have cable, but now you have Netflix, you have Hulu, you have Amazon Prime, you have Disney Plus. You have all these stupid ass subscriptions we have to pay for that equal more headache and more money in the end, right? And then they all go woke, everything gets crazy. So it's like, you know, fishing has been, a nice place where we all go to escape this hell sometimes, for some of us. And some of us, it's not so much hell, and life's a beautiful thing, right? Or it's a mix of both. Sometimes it's dark and sometimes it's beautiful. Some worse than others, but fishing is our escape. And I don't like to bring politics into it, but I'll talk about serious subjects sometimes, go off on rants on tangents. That's also, I have a channel called Common Sense Talks. And on that channel, I talk about stuff like I'm talking about right now. So if you're interested in hearing me talk about that instead of, fishing tips and tricks, or maybe a little bit of both, head on over to Common Sense Talks, leave a subscribe and a like, because always here, I try to keep it just fishing related, but we had fun. Like I rap. I don't know if you guys know, but I'm a lyrically minded fool, and I can freestyle rap. I can write raps. I do music and have fun, and occasionally I'll play beats and I'll actually rap about fishing and other stuff. Um, you know, we do lots of giveaways. We have fun on this channel. I've done scary stories, lots of them actually, and I have a lot of crazy true stories. So we did like story time where I've talked about my car crash, 120 mile an hour, flipping over, three times and landing in the water, sinking instantly. One of my friends being trapped underwater for 10 minutes, the whole ordeal to save him, what we all went through. I talk about some of the craziest stuff I've seen and been through, mountain lion encounters. This is a great, fun channel, and you guys are some awesome people. So I love the little community that we've built here over the last 2 years. I hope it grows and becomes something awesome. So, yeah, right. Um, so don't forget, smash that subscribe and like. And if you're someone that doesn't agree with some of the stuff maybe that I've said, remember we can always agree to disagree. I'm a likable fool, and I try to maintain that. But sometimes you just gotta, you stand your ground. I feel the way I do, and I'm always open to listen, and I'm always open to change. I give my opinion as well as receive it, but I try to keep that kind of stuff off of this channel. But like I said, we have fun here. So this channel is definitely a kind of an oddball fishing channel where we have these live streams where we discuss fishing primarily, all kinds of cool stuff. We do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then constantly throughout the week and throughout the month, I'm uploading fishing videos as well. Occasionally, I do whiteboard videos. If you go look back in the past, I'll be doing more of those, how tos and stuff like that. And I've got some fun, crazy adventures that I've managed to capture over the last 2 years. So I'm looking forward to many more fun years with you guys and gals and growing this into something pretty cool. Even maybe some side segments. If we can get enough followers, I'd like to branch out with a few different channels and maybe even do like a musical fishing or a musical channel or a like a podcast too, talk about current affairs and stuff like that. Well, that's what Common Sense Talks is. But we can branch out and have fun because sometimes people just want to talk fishing, and I completely understand that. So, nails. No, oh, my bad. The VMC. I went off on Ray. Ray's waiting patiently. So those skirted nails and rattles, I got them from Fisherman's Warehouse or right there in Manteca off 120. And you can order them online, but I love that little store is cool. So that's where I go get my bobber stoppers, my float and fly stuff. They've got all the wacky rig stuff. They've got all the VMC skirted nails. They got the nails. the rattles. They got everything you need. They got the glow pins, the markers. They got the scents. They got spray scents, dip scents. They've got all the different worms and rubber that you need. They got every square bill jerk bait imaginable. Man, that place has got it all. And it's got all the stuff you need. Little packs of O-rings and hooks. It's got all. They've even got spear point hooks now in. They've got all the different types of weird swing heads, jig heads, wobble heads, Tokyo rigs. They've got. If they have it, they've got it pretty much. It's a pretty cool little store off of 120 in Manteca. And that's where I personally will drive an hour up there just to go to that specific store to get everything I need in one trip. Spend a couple $100, but man, am I satisfied at the end. And so I'll shout them out. No problem. Dang, Brandon, right? What lake are you looking forward to fishing? What's the one place you've been thinking about more than any? So I'm looking forward to fishing Clear Lake. Um, I've been there many times. I'm thinking about that adventure is going to be fun. Uh, I get excited when I go to new lakes, and I've never been to Bass Lake in my boat, so I'll be trout fishing. I'm looking forward to this trout derby actually a lot, so we'll see how that goes. One lake that I'm looking forward to but haven't been to, and I'm going to make it one of these times is Lake Success down past Fresno and past Cahuilla and stuff like that. It's a real far drive, like a 3 hour drive for me. So if I'm gonna do all that, I might as well go to Clear Lake. But Success is definitely a place I want to go check out. And I've been to and fished quite a few times, but I'd like to spend more time out at Los Banos Creek Reservoir, so LBC. Um, then Berryessa, I'd like to get back out to Berryessa a few times. Um, I've been to most of the lakes around here, though. Pardee, or not Pardee, Amador, Comanche, Salt Springs, the Maloney's, Pedro, McClure, Tulick is good, Eastman, Hensley, um, Shaver, Millerton, um, Los Banos Creek Reservoir, San O'Neill Forebay, Delta, Berryessa, Clear Lake, Orville, and Bullard's Bar have been most of the places I've been to. I want to go to Trinity as well. So I'm looking forward to Trinity, but we'll see. Thanks everybody for watching and hanging out. We've just got a couple minutes left. If anybody has questions, now would be a perfect time to ask them, or a topic you guys want to discuss maybe on the next live stream. But Friday, I don't know if I'm going to be able to have a next live stream. I might live stream on the way up to Bass Lakes and just do it in the car. I've done that before, and we'll just talk like we do now, and we'll talk about my fishing trip at the Delta. If I have reception and it all goes through good, then perhaps we'll do a vehicle live stream, or I might get up there at the lake in time and just do one sitting down up there, or take you guys along for the fun. So we'll see how it goes. So I'll try to make sure I get in Friday. But if not, I'm going to have some epic stories to talk about Monday. So the Delta and Bass Lake Trout Derby. So 2 fishing trips, 3 days, some good friends, good times. I think we're going to have a lot of good stories and stuff to share with you guys, as well as any fishing stuff that I pick up and see while I'm out at the Delta. I'll be glad to share with you guys any stuff that I think is pertinent. I'll be paying attention to tide, what direction the lure's coming from, where the fish seem to be staged and set up, how aggressive are they, what lures am I getting bit on, what areas of the Delta am I fishing, and we'll give you guys all of that. The videos will follow soon after. So the new Hogan video, I'll probably work on that tomorrow, and that video probably come out, the next day or two for members early access, and then it'll probably hit the public, either Friday or next Monday. And then, like I said, there'll be a couple other videos coming out, um, the Delta and then Bass Lakes. And then the new Hogan trip, I actually broke down into 3 videos. One video is going to be the overall trip with some just the fishing and the fun and driving around. And then I did a crankbait video, like a small tutorial on crankbait fishing, what I do and look for and how I fish it. And that'll be about a 5 or 10 minute video. And then I did a jerk bait video on how I select and use my jerk baits, and that'll probably be about a 10 or 15 minute video. And then I have the whole trip combined as one, and it'll be lacking the crankbait and jerkbait portions where I'm discussing it as a separate entity. So I have 3 trips coming. So if you guys are wondering what you're going to see, 3 videos. I'll try to space them out so the actual trip will be coming out soon. And the crankbait and jerkbait videos I'll put out as some random tip videos, probably a week or 2 staggered, so that they can float in with my other stuff, because they're good videos that I think will help you guys throw a crankbait or a jerkbait at all times of the year. So you just got to pay attention to what pattern and time of the year you're at and make some adjustments. Spear point hooks, brother. I don't think people know how good those hooks are. Game changer. Yeah, they're pretty good. You get them at Fisherman's Warehouse sells them too now. So what I do is I go down to Fisherman's Warehouse, man, and they got the big, they got the little, they got all kinds of different sizes of them and packs of them. I use them for my Nico rig, my drop shot rig, and a couple other setups. I have the Texas rig style ones as well, skip gap big hooks to throw like a Cinco on, and a couple other different things with those. I was also wondering and thinking about reaching out to my friend and seeing if he could make a mold where I could get him the spear point hooks and he can pour lead around them and make little Kitech weighted swim bait hooks with the spear point. So I don't think they sell those yet. That'd be a really cool thing to have before anyone else. There's some nice Kitech spear point hooks that have a weight at the bottom. That would be a pretty nasty little advantage, I think. So yeah, those are great hooks. You're right. Thank you everybody for hanging out tonight. We'll see you guys on the next one. Appreciate it. Smash that like if you guys get a chance before heading out. And tight lines, everybody. Even a Ned spear point. Oh yeah, for sure. They actually have kind of a Ned spear point. Strike King does. The hook's very similar shape. So you can check that out. They're actually pretty good. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for watching Common Sense Fishing. We'll see you guys on the next live stream, as well as we got a bunch of adventures and tip videos coming out. So thank you very, very much. And we'll see you on the next one. Wish me luck for the Bass Lake Trout Derby. I hope I get a $1,000 trout. So me and my buddy are going to split whatever we get. So if I catch all the trout and he don't catch none, I got to share half the money. If he catches them and I don't catch anything, he has to share half. If we both go out there and get broke, well, then we both go out there and get broke. So it's going to be fun. We're just going to have a good time and looking forward to it. So wish us luck. Tight lines, everybody. You guys have a good one. We'll catch you on the next one.